Hello and welcome to More Ways to Write Using Picture Books. My name is Sarah Scoggin and I'm the Early Childhood Librarian at the Newburgh Free Library, Newburgh, New York. This is the second video in a series of how to write using picture books as a starting point. I will link to my first video up in the card, or you can just start with this one. So without further ado, let's learn some more ways. So in the earlier video, I talked about picking a character and writing a backstory. So writing a story based on what you don't see, taking any picture and then saying, well, where did this character come from? What's their name? Just creating a story. So this is a related idea. This is an alphabet book, My Name is Alice, by Jane Bayer and illustrated by Stephen Kellogg. So this is based on that game you might have played or heard of as a jump rope game or a ball bouncing game. My name is Alice. My husband's name is Alex. We come from Alaska and we sell ants. So here's Alice is an ape and Alex is an anteater. So it continues for every letter of the alphabet. You'd say the letter, my name is girl's name that starts with this letter, and then my husband's name is boy's name that starts with that letter, where they come from, and what they sell are all the same letter. So this is the perfect book for you to make up your own alphabet story. So you could say, my name is Anita. My husband's name is Adam. We come from Alabama and we sell apples. And you could go through your whole alphabet. This story culminates in the alphabet market. So you could create your own alphabet market is the first way you could write using picture books as a jumping off point. If you don't have a book like this, you can just use any alphabet book or write out an alphabet and create your own story that way. Tip number 2 is to create your own story using props. So I just created this little Red Riding Hood character out of paper. If you don't have the props to tell a story, so I make a few characters and I could tell a story like Little Red Riding Hood. If you have the props with you already, you can do it that way. So I have a doll to be Goldilocks, and here I have 3 bears, my big bear, my medium-sized bear, and my little baby bear. To tell the story of the 3 bears. You can make a story with a doll and a lamb, could be a little Bo Peep. So just, you can take a look at your toys and see what stories you can tell. And of course, you're free to make up your own stories. That's a really great way to do free play, is to start with anything and say, this is a doll, her name is Flora, and she wants to fill in the blank, go on a picnic, find her friend. If the child's old enough, the child can make up what she wants to do, and kind of just see where it goes from there. The story could go anywhere that you want. So you might need inspiration by just looking at a prop. One other thing you can do besides just making your paper characters is to make a little set. One of my very favorite memories from being a preschooler is my mom playing Paper Zoo with me. So she made little cages out of black construction paper, just like these, and then she made little animals out of paper, and they're just like a sandwich sign, so they stand up. Here's my little tiger, and put in the cages, and she made a whole bunch of cages and little paper animals, and a little folded piece of paper that looked like us. So the mom and me as little paper characters. And that's one of my very favorite memories. It wasn't even a toy, it was just something that had been made out of paper. So and every time you played, you could just invent something new, with how you're going to have a story with your paper zoo. I also have these. This is a peg doll. I bought the pegs plain wood, and then I just drew on them with markers. So you could create a whole cast of characters for your stories, whatever you wanted to draw. You could also use clothespins that have round heads. You could use popsicle sticks if you don't have pegs. You could even use, strips of like white cardboard and draw on them. So just using whatever you have to make sort of, not really puppets so much as sort of storytelling props, storytelling reminders of where the characters are and what they're doing. So that might be fun. And then when you're done, now you have your own set of characters. So tip number 2 is to use props, either paper or toys, to tell a story or retell a story that already exists. My next idea is to take a story that already exists, like The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle, and to completely reset it. There are many, many fractured fairy tales or retold fairy tales out there. I will put a few titles in the description as an example. Here's I made a little paper alien. So instead of having the very hungry caterpillar who eats through various items each day of the week, I have the very hungry alien who could eat through 7 pieces of pizza, or he could eat through galoshes. So just to completely reset it, it could be the 3 little pigs in space. It could be the little gingerbread man, except he's being chased instead of by different animals. It could be chased by robots. So the whole mashup, invent your own story. My next idea is to have 2 characters that already exist in stories meet each other, kind of extension of the mashup idea. So if I'm telling the story of the 3 little pigs, and I have my pigs, and I also have my Little Red Riding Hood character. You could have Little Red Riding Hood going through the forest, and instead of meeting the wolf, she meets a pig who ran out of sticks. Like, he needs more sticks for his house. And then the pig could help Little Red Riding Hood, or the woodcutter could show up, and it could be that the wolf is waiting at the house and he gets bored and he leaves, or he tries to blow down grandmother's house and it won't blow down and Little Red Riding Hood shows up. You can do whatever you would like to have fun with stories. That's why I believe it's so important to learn original fairy tales. Fairy tales have been used in every culture around the world since pretty much forever. So I encourage you to make yourself familiar with some original fairy tales. Um, those who are commonly known in this part of the world or from any culture. So once you know the stories, not only is it great for literacy, great for enjoyment, you can also then have fun with the tales. Another idea is to take a story and give it a new title. So this is Joseph Had a Little Overcoat by Sims Tabak. It's actually a Caldecott winner for the art in this book. And in the story, Joseph is very thrifty. So he has a coat and it gets all worn out. And so what is he going to do? He's going to make it into a jacket. And the story continues. He's always very thrifty, making things out of whatever is left. So when his jacket gets worn out, what can he make from that? What can he make from the next thing? And so that's the main plot of the story. So instead of calling it Joseph Had a Little Overcoat, you could say, well, what else could we call this story? We could call it The Man Who Never Wasted Anything. Or we could call it The Thrifty Man and explain what thrifty means. Anything that you could just come up with a new title. It's an opportunity to talk about what is the main idea of the story, really, because you're giving the main idea as the title. Another idea is to take a story, or rather a picture book such as this one. This is Let's Sing Together, and it's a song book. It's meant to be sung or played on a piano. So this is in no way a story. It's not a plot. It's just a list of different songs and poems. So a Tisket a Tasket's on this page, and then it goes right into Yankee Doodle, and the next page is All Around the Mulberry Bush. So you could take the pictures and make it into a story. So this girl in a Tisket a Tasket, she loses a letter. Yankee Doodle might come along and find the letter, and then try to return it to her, but she is busy with her new friends that she's met in the forest. You could just, each page is kind of like the Mad Lib game where you just fill in whatever comes next. And it might be a fun exercise, especially if you have older elementary children who can help come up with, okay, how are we going to incorporate this next thing that happened into the story, since they're all really not connected to each other. So, and you could just pick certain pages. You don't have to do the whole book. But that might be a way to just stretch your brain with a creative exercise. How can we throw something into the mix? Like all of a sudden the alphabet shows up here. So that's another idea. Another thing you could do is to pick a story, read the entire story as it stands. So this is the Read Aloud Bedtime Stories Treasury, and I'm going to open up here to Jack and the Beanstalk. So after you've read the entire story, to come back and then stop at any point you want. So you could stop at the point where Jack meets the man with the magic beans, and it could turn out that the beans are maybe they're magic, but instead of just growing up a giant beanstalk to the sky, they grow into a giant bush bean with beans the size of a person, and then they discover the secret of growing giant plants, and they can feed the whole kingdom with giant tomatoes and pumpkins the size of buildings and all kinds of things. You might then want to read the book Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which is related with giant food. Or you could say, okay, the beanstalk grew, just like in the original, and there's a castle up at the top, but instead of there being a mean giant who wants to eat Jack or capture him, it could be a giant who's a farmer. He teaches Jack farming, or maybe he gets to the top and there's another kind of magical kingdom. So you could just start a story and then write an alternate ending. And depending again on how old the children are, they can actually write the ending. They could draw pictures to show the ending, or you just do it as a storytelling exercise. You could have each person, if you have a group of people in your family, each person could write a different alternate ending from the same stopping point, and then you could each read aloud what each person came up with. So you could see what each different person did with the same sort of story starter. One last thing you can do is to take a Post-it note or another small piece of paper and try to write a story, an entire story with a beginning, a middle, an end, and a problem, some kind of conflict, on one tiny piece of paper. So it's a little micro story. So this is what I wrote. Once upon a time, there was a spider who wanted to live in a people house. He went inside one, but there were too many big people feet, and it was too scary. So he went and lived in a little empty birdhouse in a tree in the yard and was very happy. The end. So there's just conflict. He wants to live in a people house, and it was too big. Solution, he lives in a small house in the tree in the yard. So beginning, middle, and end on a Post-it note. So you can challenge yourself to write lots of really short stories. So thank you for watching, and stay tuned for another Writing from Picture Books workshop.